Hello, this is another edition of our video podcast from WVSports.com, Musings from the Mountains. I'm Keenan Cummings, managing editor for the site.
And I'm Patrick Kotnik, staff writer for the site.
Shout out to Tyson Murray again, our producer. He does all the video work with this, and I recommend you check out what he does for himself.
Highly recommend it.
Yes, quality stuff, and it makes us look a little bit better than we do in real life.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little. We got a game to preview, though. West Virginia off a big win. Their first win against a ranked team since 2011 when they were unranked on the road. Comes home for Senior Day. It's Senior Day in Morgantown, a high noon kick against an Oklahoma State team that, frankly, has had West Virginia's number of late. They've won 4 straight. This is a ranked Oklahoma State team, 22, 23rd, depending on what poll you prefer. A team that's a pretty good football team. Not necessarily what you've come to expect with Oklahoma State. Once Tylan Wallace got hurt, we'll get into that later. They're a star wide receiver, but at the same time, they kind of are. You know, they run the football a lot. They take deep shots. You know, this is an Oklahoma State team that has a lot of talent top to bottom.
Yeah, I mean, it's a typical, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State team. We've seen them past couple of years with Mason Rudolph and Taylor Cornelius be able to, they're going to take their shots down the field in the passing game, but they've also been able to run the ball. This season, they've run the ball over 40 times in all but one game of the season. Chuba Hubbard could very well be a Heisman candidate, should be a finalist according to Neil Brown and Mike Gundy. Typical Oklahoma State team. They're going to, like I said, they're going to take their shots down the field, but they're also going to, run the ball a lot too.
Yeah, this is an offense that ranks in the top 16 in total offense, scoring offense, just short of 500 yards a game. I think it's about 37 points per game. So pretty much what you've come to expect under Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy under the helm. Game kicks off at noon, going to be on ESPN2. Anthony Beck on the call again, former Mountaineer. We've had a string of those former Mountaineers calling games, of late here in the season. Oklahoma State on offense, not real complicated. They're going to try to run the football. That's what they do the best. That's what they are, in a sense. They can spread you out. They can take deep shots, so they don't get lulled to sleep. But it starts with their quarterback. Really, it starts with their running back, but we should talk about their quarterback first. Redshirt freshman, a pretty good player in Spencer Sanders. I think the thing that makes him a little bit different than some of the guys that West Virginia's played before is he's really pretty fast. I think that he's almost a running back playing quarterback in a sense, still trying to figure out some things with his passing game. He has 11 interceptions this year. Still working on going through his progressions, that type of deal. But he's very effective when he does throw. He has been able to connect on some deep balls this year in true Oklahoma State fashion, and he's really got the offense kind of churning. They're going to run him a lot. I think he's had 21 carries over the last 2 games, or 25 carries, I believe, over the last 2 games. So they're going to use design runs. They're going to use scrambles. He's going to get out. He has over 700 yards rushing this year. So very, very effective as a runner. They're going to spread the field and kind of do what they can. If you had terrible visions of last year, Taylor Cornelius running around everywhere, almost looking like a guy on stilts, this is a lot more terrifying.
I'm very curious to see. He said he's more of a runner than the past couple of Oklahoma State quarterbacks that Mike Gundy has coached. But what can Spencer do against this West Virginia secondary? Now this is a secondary that in back-to-back weeks has allowed a long touchdown pass for the opposition to kick things off. Now difference this past week against Kansas State that West Virginia was able to answer. They were able to counter. But last time they were at home against Texas Tech, didn't happen. When they got that long touchdown to start things off, I mean, it was kind of all downhill from there. One of the defense's worst performances of the season. So at home, really curious to see what this young quarterback can do against this West Virginia secondary. That's going to be missing Josh Norwood too. Kerry Martin will be starting for the second time this season. Will be starting for the rest of the regular season from here on out. Yeah,
Chuba Hubbard is their offense really to a T. I mean, he's just fantastic player, leads the nation in rushing almost by 300 more yards than Jonathan Taylor of Wisconsin, which that in itself is impressive. I mean, the guy's numbers are incredible. You look at some of the things.
And I feel like you don't hear as much about that as you do like Jonathan Taylor, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you probably don't. Oklahoma State. I mean, the guy this year, he has 1,080 yards after contact. That's after contact. West Virginia has 800-some rushing yards. Taking out sacks, 800 rushing yards total. So the guy's getting it done. He has 20 touchdowns, 1,700 yards rushing. He's forced 63 missed tackles. That is an insane total. The guy does it with power, does it with speed, has a 92-yard run this season, so he's just a load to handle. And he's a guy that West Virginia is familiar with. He had 134 yards rushing last year in that Taylor Cornelius goes wild game in the second half. So it's been there, kind of the breakout. I don't know if to this extent Oklahoma State knew what they had, but he's really lived up to the part and really is kind of the focal point of their offense. And it's going to be really interesting, the chess match, how Vic Koenig tries to stop him, because really no one's been able to do it to date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No Tylan Wallace, as I said, their Biletnikoff finalist wide receiver. He is out for the season, tore his ACL. But what has happened in the game since is Dylan Stoner, another guy that West Virginia fans should be familiar with. He's caught a few touchdowns against them, is slid outside from his role in the slot, and he's become your primary pass catcher. He has 14 total targets over the last 2 games, 8 catches, 243 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So he's kind of taken on that lead role, and no one else on the team even has over 50 yards receiving. Like I said, Spencer Sanders has only completed 21 passes. So they're going to try to run it, but when they do throw it, Dylan Stoner's been your guy. And they also like to target the tight ends quite a bit. This is a team that, they use that cowboy back, I think is how they refer to it. They have a couple of different wing-type players that they'll use. No big chunk plays, but they will use them in the red zone. They'll use them kind of to stretch the field at times and go down the seam. So that's something West Virginia's got to be aware about as well. And an offensive line that has really performed pretty well. Offensively, this is a sound football team.
Well, I mean, if you're West Virginia, Vic Koenig, defensive coordinator Vic Koenig, has talked about before this unit being able to handle success, playing after having a successful game. Now, we saw what they were able to do against Kansas State after disappointment against Texas Tech. Can they, turn in a great performance like they did against Kansas State, but then follow up with another strong performance? That is yet to be seen. Very curious to see if they can, duplicate or at least have a strong performance against this Oklahoma State team. Yeah,
the key here is going to be try to frustrate a young quarterback. I mentioned he's been a little turnover prone at times. You can get him to turn the ball over. Can they frustrate him enough? Can they get them behind the sticks at all? If Oklahoma State has their way and is able to run the football, which is going to open up things downfield, it could be a long day for West Virginia defensively. But that's my matchup to watch. Can they do anything against Drew Hubbard to kind of slow him down and force a young quarterback on the road to make some plays and make some decisions that maybe he's not the most comfortable doing right now. So that's what I think when you look at the offense against the defense. Now, Oklahoma State's defense, not the best numbers. They're a bottom 3 type team in the league, but they've played better of late. Mm-hmm. They've only given up 27 points, which I know that seems like a lot, but in this league, 27 points sometimes is a good day at the office. Last 3 games, 27 points or less. They're playing with a lot of young guys. They have 6 players on their starting 2 deep right now, or starters on their 2 deep right now that are freshmen or sophomores, and they got some others that are going to be back next year. So it's a young group. They're going to play that 3-3-5 style you're seeing pretty much pervasively across the league at this point. Everybody's doing it. They use 3 big down linemen. They try to kind of tangle people up there and then let their second level guys, their linebackers, and especially their safeties, clean things up. So not an aggressive defense. They're not going to bring a ton of pressure. I think they blitz around 30% of the time. But what they do is they blitz effectively. They're able to get home, and they're able to generate some things. The last 3 games, though, they have switched things up a little bit. That number's been closer to 40, 45%. So it'll be interesting to see how they attack Jarrett Doege.
Well, and one thing this Oklahoma State defense has been able to do is force turnovers. Over the past 3 games, they've forced 10 total turnovers.
A lot.
Yeah, that's a pretty good number through 3 games. So West Virginia was able to take care of the ball against Kansas State. Can they do it again? We'll see.
Yeah, I think that was the difference for West Virginia against Kansas State. They won the turnover margin, and West Virginia wins the turnover margin. Typically, good things have happened in this program's history. I think the number is like 89-14 when West Virginia wins the turnover battle. So that's a key right there coming into this. That's always a key in every game. Will be interesting to see, though, how Oklahoma State plays them, and what happens there, because Jarrett Doege does present a little bit different of a look than West Virginia's been showing. He has more mobility, he's able to get out of the pocket and make things happen. Obviously, I think for West Virginia, they got to be able to protect. They got to avoid turnovers. They got to avoid sacks and kind of stay ahead of the chains. If they're able to do that, I think West Virginia can move the ball on this defense. It's definitely shown it's susceptible to have some plays against it. Now it's a matter of can West Virginia find some consistency? I think that's a question.
Yeah, and as we've said before, I mean, a lot of these matchups in the Big 12, it will come down to, who can stop the run, who can get the run game going. Can West Virginia stop Chuba Hubbard in this Oklahoma State rushing attack, or can West Virginia get their run game going? Now, they were better last game against Kansas State, but still a long way to go. Offensive line starting to gel a little bit more. Running backs ran a little bit harder. Can they get the run game going? We'll wait and see.
Yeah. All right, Pat. Any questions? Do we have questions this week at all?
We have a couple.
Okay.
We do have a couple.
We'll take
it's kind of short notice, but first question here: where is WVU at this cycle recruiting DBs? Is there anyone to fill a safety spot who is official visiting?
Well, that's going to come in the next couple of weeks. One guy that's visiting this weekend is Jackie Matthews. He's a corner, but he could possibly move around and play safety. So there's a guy to circle. West Virginia's going to add probably a couple more guys in their secondary. Charles Bell is another one, high school player from Maryland. So those are your two guys to really, I'd say, keep an eye on.
Now, second, final question here. After seeing Diggy play one full game, regardless on if West Virginia won the Kansas State game, who do you predict to start next year? Diggy or Austin Kendall?
Well, I think since you're already replaced Austin Kendall this year, he would have to have a really good offseason to kind of overtake Diggy. I think this is Diggy's job for now. Granted, he finishes the season strong. If he plays like he did on the road against Kansas State, then, yeah, it's going to be his job.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I feel like the one thing that Diggy that he brings to the table that he's been really effective at so far, and only his 2 appearances so far this season, is his mobility in the pocket, his ability to extend plays, to make quick decisions. Now I'm a firm believer that Kendall didn't exactly play himself out of the starting quarterback job. It was just more of Neil Brown, having lost 5 straight, just feeling like they needed a change. Kendall hasn't played perfect, but he hasn't played poorly. But a lot of it was mistakes with the receivers, running backs, offensive line. Definitely a lot of factors factored in there. But at the end of the day, I feel like this will be Diggy's job to lose, unless Austin Kendall can have can improve a lot in certain areas during the offseason.
Yeah, I think the thing with Kendall is at some point you got to elevate those around you in a sense at quarterback, and I don't think that happened enough with him. Yes, he didn't get help. Yes, he didn't struggle. He struggled at times, but you look at some of the plays that Diggy made on the road at Kansas State, and that was him making a play.
Well, that touchdown to Bryce Wheat.
Yeah, that was him making a play, keeping his eyes downfield, extending plays, and kind of buying time, which West Virginia's offensive line needs that. They need all the help they can get, and Austin Kendall just wasn't able to give that more often than not. But, yeah, I know you're glued now to realize our prediction for this game, and I got a shocker. I'm taking West Virginia. I am taking West Virginia to win this game at home on Senior Day. Don't ask me why. I don't know. Why not? All right. At this point, I've been wrong. I think 3 of the last 4. Maybe I'll hit one. I started the season off pretty well, but not so much of late. I really didn't expect them to win at Kansas State, but they did. So who cares what I think at this point? But I do think that West Virginia's going to play well again at home. I think they can score on Oklahoma State, which I think is important. They're not as good defensively as some of the teams they've played of late. I like Diggy and West Virginia at home. I think they're going to find a way to win on Senior night.
I've gone back and forth. I mean, an Oklahoma State win against West Virginia in Morgantown is, let's get this out of the way. It's not going to shock me at all. But I think I'm going to take West Virginia too in an upset. I'm going to go West Virginia 35-31. I really feel like with this offense under Diggy that, especially at home on Senior Day, playing maybe a little bit more inspired, coming off of that big win in Manhattan against Kansas State. I feel like they'll be able to get the job done. Now they have to get the run game going, as I say every week. They have to be able to take their shots downfield and complete some of those big plays. And defensively, they got to stop their high potent run game. Now, can they do it? I mean, I still think Chuba Hubbard's going to have a pretty great game, but I really do feel like the defense will show up strong in some of those other areas, especially like in the passing game as well. But same thing. Don't ask me why, but I have a feeling that West Virginia is going to be able to pull this one out now. But like I said, an Oklahoma State win isn't going to shock me.
Guess we'll see. But yeah, but I feel good about West Virginia's chances. I do. I think that that they built a lot of momentum. They really kind of needed that type of game. On the road against Kansas State, they got it, and now could we be talking bowl game? Maybe. Tune in next week. But thank you again for tuning in for another episode of Musings from the Mountains. We'll be back after the game for kind of some instant analysis as we do for home games, and regular schedule next week. But once again, thank you for tuning in.